Okay, so Bruchim Habayim to the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center. Thank you, Rabbi Fahi. Friends, there's a few sounds that we listen to during the year. One of them is coming up. It is the shofar that we'll be listening to, B'ezrat Hashem, on Rosh Hashanah. But there are other sounds that can have a Kiddush Hashem. And I'm saying this because I just arrived late last night, 1:30 a.m. from London. The flight was delayed, of course, Baruch Hashem. And I was sitting, waiting for the plane to come. And in Heathrow Airport, where I flew in from, there's a kosher option in the lounge that I managed to wiggle my way into. And so my wife and I were sitting there waiting for the plane. And then we ordered the kosher food option, which was very nice. And as you know, when you order kosher food options, it comes wrapped in enough plastic to fill an ocean. And out it comes, piping hot, like the surface of the sun. And you've got to find a way to dig in and cut all this plastic off with a plastic fork. My friends, this itself is a feat in and of itself. Just to get that plastic that is attached. It's like entering Fort Knox, trying to get to your teriyaki chicken or whatever they're serving you, just to get in with a plastic fork, a plastic knife. You're cutting away, you're hocking away. The sound of you trying to break in to that plastic food causes a rush of sound throughout the entire terminal. I mention it because next to us was a gentleman, and he sees my wife and I hocking away, cutting away, trying to get under all that plastic wrapping. And by the way, the trick is, of course, don't just order one or two. You have to order 3 or 4. You go, yeah, my kids are coming, my uncle's coming, my grandfather's coming. You've got to bring you different things, so you can, sample them all. They're there anyway. The Hamolis, which is a wonderful company, the ones that supply it. While my wife and I try to cut inside with all this plastic fanfare, there's a guy sitting next to us. And he bageled us. You know this expression, bageled us? You mean bageled before? Let me explain what this is. This is very important. Being bageled is when someone who is Jewish wants you to know that they are Jewish. And they'll make certain references and hints and comments just so that you know that they are Jewish. For example, you'll be in a store and you'll be looking at, a mug or a vase or something, and they'll be like, oy vey, this is so expensive. They'll make a comment like that because they're not religious, they're culturally Jewish, but they want you to know that they are Jewish so that you make a comment. When people make those comments, and they're very common, when they make such comments, it's important to engage them. This is their way of saying, they'll say oy vey, oy gewalt, they'll say some kind of Jewish thing, never Hashem for some reason, never Baruch Hashem. They'll say some kind of comment because they want to engage you in the process. When they do this, it is a mitzvah to engage them. Talk to them. They want you to know. They want to feel that affiliation. You don't know the impact you could be making on that person by engaging them when they reach out to you in such a way. And so we did. There's a guy sitting next to us as we're trying to cut in, and he says, oy vey, I wish I knew they had a kosher option. I'm telling you the truth. Oy vey, I wish I knew there was a kosher option. So I looked at my wife, she looks at me, and you know that kind of nod, you're like, we got one. Hook, line, and sinker. We got him. And so we started to talk to him, a South African Jew. He's a businessman with his laptop out, all the spreadsheets on there. And we got talking to him and his family and his kids, and he's traveling for business, and then he's going to play golf in Scotland. He was playing golf in Scotland, And he's talking, and we had an extra meal with us that was unopened because we didn't go through the process of opening that one as well. So he said to him, would you like the kosher chicken? It happens to be delicious. And he's like, oh, no, I don't want to. I said, look, we had one already. This is the 3rd or 4th option we already took. Please take it. So he takes it. And then he starts trying to cut inside it, cutting away, hocking away, trying to get in there. And we're talking, and we shared numbers and information and Divrei Torah. He talks about his temple that he goes to. Whenever they say that, I think, he goes to the original temple of Bet HaMikdash? There's a reason we don't call a synagogue a temple. The Orthodox and the Sephardim never call a synagogue a temple because in that world, they think they are replacing the temple in Yerushalayim. This is the temple. We don't need that temple. This is our temple. That's why you'll never see an Orthodox synagogue or a Sephardi synagogue called a temple. It's a busha to the original. That's why you call it a synagogue, a Bet Knesset, but never a temple.
And the other guys don't call that a synagogue.
They only call it a temple, yeah. Yeah, it's a big, big problem. That's why we never do that. You should know that. So never call a synagogue a temple. Synagogue a temple, Beth this, Beth that. When I was a kid, I was like, who is this Beth woman who's donating so much money to all these synagogues around town? It's a tremendous opportunity, my friends, when you're in that scenario and you can have a conversation, you don't know what that one comment can make. You know, as a side point, I must remember something which a big tzaddik once told me many, many years ago. He said, you know, one day you're going to go to Shemayim. And Hashem's going to give you all the mitzvot, and unfortunately all the averot, which we're trying to get rid of right now, that you said and did. And then Hashem's going to show you a list of people who became observant because of you. And He's going to show you someone and be like, yeah, you had a big, big impact on this person. And you're like, what do you mean this person? I don't know who that is. I never met them before. Where are they from? They're from Dallas, Texas. I don't know. I was never in Dallas, Texas. This one's from Alabama. I was never in Alabama. This one's from New Jersey. Yeah, I was in New Jersey, unfortunately. And they'll give you a whole rishima, a whole list of people that you impacted without even knowing who they are. They don't recognize the name or the face. How did that impact them? And they'll say you were in the airport and you had a schmooze with them. You're walking down the street wearing your kippah, holding talit and tefillin. They saw you, and in their mind, they had hirurei teshuvah. They thought to themselves, I need to become more observant just by looking at you. When they look at you, and they have that feeling that if this Jew can walk around with a kippah, or order kosher food on an airplane, or go to synagogue early in the morning for silichot or tefillah with the talit tefillin, maybe I should as well. That could have started their entire Jewish journey. You are amply rewarded just for walking along, although in your mind you're like, oh no, Bet Knesset, I'm cold, it's so early. Don't worry about that. When they can't see your thoughts, thank God. They see your actions, and your actions speak louder than your words. And you will be richly rewarded just for that. Isn't that a beautiful concept? Based on that, I want to talk about this idea of a community. And some of the prayers that we said. You know, we said in Silichot this morning, words in Hebrew. And then we say tefillot in Aramaic. What's up with that? What's the difference between Hebrew and Aramaic? And to answer this, I want to share with you one idea of a question. What language do angels communicate in? Music? That's a nice answer. I do like that. We know that our tefillot that come, we say this. All the mizmorim and pizmonim we say with music and musical tunes definitely has Hashem seems to like that. We say that in the Halukas, actually in Tefillah Shacharit. But what language? The language is in Lashon Kodesh. If you want Hashem to hear your tefillot, you need to have melachim as intermediaries between you and Hashem. Who are the intermediaries? Who ferries our tefillot standing here in Manhattan or in London, England, where I was, or even Yerushalayim? Who is transporting our tefillah? How do they get there? So we know that the melachim pick them up and transfer them actually through Yerushalayim, through the Makom Mikdash to this very day. That's why the Shekhinah is still there. All of our tefillah travel from all around the world. That's why we face Yerushalayim. One of the reasons, all the way to Yerushalayim, to Har HaBayit, and whoop, straight up to Hashem. Who's doing that for us? Angels. Angels are doing that for us. Why? Because that's their tafkid, that's their shlichut. They have the ability to take our prayers and to transform them and to transfer them up to Shemayim. Every time you say a tefillah, the melachim are transporting their prayers. But there's one language that the melachim do not get involved in. And that is the language of Aramaic, Aramit. They don't get involved in that. And therefore, whenever there is a tefillah that is not in Aramaic, you need a minyan. Kaddish is Aramaic, right? It's Aramaic. You need a minyan. Da'aneh la'aniyeh aninan. Da'aneh la'ashikeh la'aninan. All of these asking Hashem's to answer the poor, the oppressed, the brokenhearted, right? Litvire liba. Litvire liba, the tough and the shin, by the way, are interchangeable, Aramaic to Hebrew. So actually, when you say litvire liba, you're saying that the brokenhearted, because the tough is a shin. So it's a shivur. It's not tibur, it's shivir. Hashem, we are brokenhearted. Liba is our heart. Liba with an aleph is Aramaic. So we're actually, when we say these tefillah, we're doing something very unusual. We are actually going around the malachim and going directly to Hashem. So these Aramaic prayers are to some degree greater than the Hebrew ones, because the Hebrew ones, we say, listen, it's Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh, we need the malachim to transfer them. But the Aramaic ones, whatever the Aramaic prayer is, and Sedichot is full of them, and we have them in a regular tefillah too, those prayers need to be said with a minyan. Why? Because they have inside them something where you need a minyan in order to say them. Because the malachim don't get involved in those ones. Oh, no malachim, you need minyan. Kaddish, Aramaic. We are detouring. Why that is, by the way? Why are we going around the malachim? Why are we going around them and allowing our tefillot to go up to Shemayim without the malachim? It must be these prayers are so kadosh, we don't need the malachim, the angels, to transfer them, transport them. We can do them directly ourselves to Hashem. Oh, but there's one caveat, and that is minyan. For those tefillot, my friends, we need a minyan to help them be elevated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's why all Aramaic, Hebrew, you can pray by yourself. But Aramaic, you need HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly, and you need a minyan in order to make that happen. That is the secret. So when we say these prayers in Aramaic, you need to be thinking, these prayers must be so special that even the angels in heaven are not required in order to transport them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we do need unity. And that's why the theme, my friends, of Elul is a time of communal prayer. It doesn't get better than this. So good, we don't even need Lashon Kodesh at times. We are able to rely on each other in order. We become our own angels to allow us to allow tefillot to go to Shemai. May Hashem answer all of our tilichat, all of our selichot, Bezrat Hashem, and the sounds that we make of tefillah, or the shofar, Bezrat Hashem, or the plastic opening on the food packages, the sounds we make when we're in the supermarket and we say, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, you should have bracha, hatzlacha. All of these little tefillot that we make, they can have a major impact on the Jewish people around us and even the Goyim, but that's another discussion. And may all of our tefillot be answered. Bekarov mamash Bezrat Hashem. Have a great, successful day.